nice. Very nice. Front to back. Leader's garment. Quite happy.
It's alright, isn't it? Looks pretty good in that bad boy.
Excellent, I think the word you're looking for is... Look at that thing. Looks beautiful, doesn't it? Beautiful.
Now, only if you're ready for this.
Welcome back to the OTB podcast. This week in the hot seat, we've got a pretty special guest again, following up after having Blinky last week. It was only fitting that we have someone from the same, well, pretty close to the same era. A legend of the downhill scene for sure. World champion, World Cup winner, national champion. I'm sure I'm missing a few off there, but Brook MacDonald, welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you. Cheers, boys, for having me.
Pretty good. As always, James Rennie, the Red Dog, joining me in the co-host seat.
Great to be here. Excited to yarn to Brook, that's for sure.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
We're becoming the show that we actually get some famous people on, so it's really good. Not just me and Red Dog talking shit, which is nice.
Where did this idea come about, boys?
We both listen to Pulp MX, big motocross podcast show, and we've talked about it because they put out so much good content, and we talked about it, and then I did my one with Vital MTB, and I realised it was actually not that hard to put together. So we were like, "Fuck it, let's give it a shot," and it's became what it is today. So
solid.
It's been pretty fun.
That's cool. That's really cool. And I listen to a few podcasts, but how can you actually make an income off podcasts?
You probably have to ask someone that makes an income off them.
Certainly not this one. Yeah,
this is just a fun project for us so far.
I definitely stuff.
Yeah, I definitely think you can, but we've probably got a bit of growing to do before we hit that.
Yeah,
We definitely cater for the niche market of New Zealand, which is kind of what the whole idea behind it was. Anyway, it's cool to get Kiwi stories on and everything like that. But
yeah, definitely.
It's just fun for us pretty much. But maybe one day we just won't have to work anymore and we'll be full-time podcasters.
Yeah. That'd be the dream.
We'll wait for that to come around. So it was good. We caught up last weekend in Nelson at the national round there, Brook, and you mentioned the podcast, so I was stoked that you actually had even heard of it for a start. So that was that was a good start for us.
Yeah, no.
And stoked to get you on this week. Bit of a rough one for both of us last weekend. Like, it was pretty slippery.
Yeah. I'd had a pretty decent break off the DH rig, so it was good to come back and do a bit of racing. But kind of got thrown in the deep end a little bit. I only had like 5 runs over the weekend, leading into the seeding and finals, and I hadn't ridden that track. The last time I rode that track was probably 7 years ago, so there's a lot of learning to do.
Yeah, you were probably like under 19.
Yeah, I think.
Or maybe an elite.
My first year trek.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even think it was a national round. I think it was a Nelson local race.
Oh, I think that was at the point where they were like, there was a fallout between the Mountain Bike Club and Mountain Bike New Zealand, and they were just like having a race around when all the national rounds were on.
Yeah. So that was the last time I was there. And, to try and memorise a 5-minute track like that is pretty difficult.
Yeah.
But
pretty full on.
Yeah, safe to say I went off track, so I didn't actually put down a time. So I'm good on that side of things.
Are you doing any more of the national rounds or anything this year?
I wanted to try to Rotorua, but I got Fox Hunt the day before
true.
So couldn't get a flight back up. But I think I'll do Auckland. I'll go down to National Champs, and then I'll stay probably 3 weeks in Queenstown and
nice.
Stay down there for some riding training. Actually, Red Bull have just kind of put together a sort of like a 6-week athlete program down there. So there's going to be myself, Laurie Greenland, Jackson Goldstone, Emil, who else? Finn Isles, and Bass van Steenberg. So
That sounds awesome.
Yeah,
right,
Ewan has put everything together. He's the dude who runs like the medical side of things for Crankworks.
Yeah, I know him.
So he's put something together. So yeah, I'm gonna go spend 3 weeks and just get a solid time on the bike leading into Crankworks and World Cup racing.
Yeah, nice. I guess it's I think like people probably don't realise the actual, maybe the importance of time on the downhill bike. It's like you can ride everything else, but it's, man, if you can get that time, and I think that's where you see some of those guys like Eddie and that. Well, I mean, not that they're racing downhill that much, but they just spend so much time on the bike, start racing.
Yeah,
It's got to be.
Like I always think about it because I'm always like so worried about how fit I am and how fit I'm going to be for the season, and I kind of just lose like track of how much I actually ride my downhill bike. And to be honest, I really don't ride my downhill bike that much. One, because like where I live, I don't have much good riding, so I'm kind of just in the process of relocating to Rotorua and have
nice.
some consistency in my life of actually riding mountain bikes. Whereas here, it's like
Yeah.
pretty slim pickings of something that can actually cater for myself and that challenges me and that actually gives me stuff that I can work on. So yeah, I either have to travel to Rotorua or Queenstown for some decent riding.
That's interesting
definitely.
because Hawke's Bay used to have a really good downhill scene. Like I know growing up in Palmy, we'd head over there quite a bit to ride.
Yeah, bro. Yeah.
And they had a really good scene going.
Yeah, we did have a real good scene, and it's just as soon as we lost that big forest that you guys would have raced in, on that Napier Taupo road. Yeah, as soon as we lost that, we kind of lost all our good trails and downhill track. We had one downhill track, and it was pretty good, but like obviously limited access into there with the forestry. It's just a bit difficult getting keys and being able to have access into there, and it's got a lot harder now. So it's just the scene has definitely fallen off a lot, and like Hawke's Bay definitely still has a strong mountain bike club, but that where we're actually riding at the moment, the forest it's a pretty small hill, and it doesn't really, it's like grade 3 or 4 tracks, but even grade 4, it's not overly difficult. So yeah, it's definitely hard for me to get out and ride my mountain bike. I kind of go out and ride my mountain bike when I have to, and spend a lot of the time on my road bike. I actually don't realise how much I spend on my road bike, and I'm a professional mountain biker. So yeah, it'll be good to relocate and just bring some consistency into my life of mountain biking, because it's not getting any easier, and the level of racing is so high that you really need to be riding your downhill bike. I don't know, at least sort of coming into the season for sure, at least like 3-4 times a week. And obviously,
I've always thought that, because you look at the motocross guys and that, and they're like supercross and that, and they're riding like 3 or 4 times a week, even leading up, like maybe not so much on race weeks, but it's like leading into the season. It's just like lap after lap after lap, and it's got to be so beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I guess for us, like we have like, well, especially Europeans, they have so much different varieties and options of riding. Within probably 2 to 3 hours fly, maybe 8-9 hours drive. So I think like New Zealand is like, we do for sure have great, a lot of great riding, but compared to Europe, it's definitely not on the scale as what those guys have.
Nah, we definitely punch above our weight when it comes to that aspect, of the amount of riding, we actually have, lift access or anything like that. It's it's a whole different ball game when you're over there.
Yeah. So I think you look at all the riders that have come out of New Zealand and raced on the international scene. I think we've done pretty well for ourselves to get to that level and stay pretty consistent.
Yeah, that's for sure. So I'm going to jump back a wee bit. Where did downhill racing kind of first start out for you? Like, where did you find downhill racing?
Well, I had ridden bikes all my life. Like, had BMXs, did a small amount of racing with BMX, not overly a lot because we didn't have a BMX track here, so I had to travel to Taupo, and it was like, every once in a blue moon I'd go and race on a Wednesday there. So bikes have always been like involved in my life. And then just a friend of mine that I played rugby with when I was younger. We kind of like separated and went to different primary school and intermediate, and then met back up at high school for that last year of intermediate, and he was riding at the time, and he had a good group of people that he rode with, and kind of from there, I just got a shitty specialized hard rock, RST forks,
Yeah,
cable brakes, triple chain
not
ring
like
up
the kids
the
are
front.
riding these days today, eh?
Nah, definitely not.
You just cut your teeth on the shittiest bike possible, pretty much.
Yeah, but still, loved the adrenaline of it all. Obviously, I grew up playing rugby a majority of my life, so there was obviously that adrenaline there, but just I think when I went to mountain biking, it was a totally different feeling, and from there, I kind of like started racing local races, and then was travelling to Wanganui because Wanganui used to hold a pretty good winter series, so I used to go across there and race that, and got introduced to Blinky and Wyn and Eddie, and then from there I started racing national races, and I definitely can say by far those national race series that we used to race were like the best time of my life. Growing up racing bikes.
Travelling family at that point, it was just so much fun.
Yeah, it was sick. I feel like, if we were 16 again last weekend in Nelson, we probably would have been on the piss on that Friday. Practicing on the Saturday and racing on the Sunday, and then having another massive party.
There was a fair bit of debauchery went on back then as well. It was probably some that should never make it to a podcast, but some pretty good times.
Yeah,
fantastic times.
No, we had some great times, and I think that kind of built me as a person, and kind of what my goal was to do with the sport. Obviously, at that time when I was like racing under 17, under 19, and doing pretty well, I never really thought that where I am today I would have got this far. I think we had a pretty strong scene back then, racing.
It was a lot of fast. It was super competitive in like the junior field back through those years. There was a lot of fast guys coming through, and
even elite too. Like when I hopped into elite, there was a solid crew of elite riders as well. So it was just I think I was very lucky to be surrounded by the likes of you guys and Wyn and Blinky and Rankin. That kind of just got me up to speed, and I was kind of gauging off of if I was in the top 5 in elite, whether I was in under 19 or in elite, there was kind of a good indication of what I potentially could do overseas, and so I think it was just a great building ground racing those races. And then 2008 was the first year I went to Europe and we raced a couple of races. AKB we did.
I just thought about that last week, that me and you were in and Yvonne, your mum,
Yeah.
travelling around.
Yeah,
Went
yeah.
to Fort William and Andorra.
Dora.
Maybe something else.
Andorra, and then I think Val di Sole for World Champs, eh?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was it. We went over to Val di Sole. It was it was a good time that year in 2008.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's where it all really kicked off for me.
I
What
still
bike were you
remember-
riding at that time, Brooke?
I was on the Iron Horse.
Yeah,
We
Remember
both
that?
were
You
on
were
Iron
in the-
Horses, eh? You were on Iron Horse too, yeah.
both had those white Sundays,
Yeah.
the 2008 ones.
Probably the sickest bike I've ever ridden, eh?
Oh, I still look at pictures of my one from that year and I'm like, this thing was awesome. I was so
Yeah.
stoked when I got my one, like they've just rebuilt recently. I just look at it every now and then. Just
Oh, have you got
stand
one
there
that
and
you've
admire it.
just rebuilt, bro?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
sick.
did it during like COVID in 2020. I did a rebuild on one.
Mean.
So,
I bet you
love
if
those
you rode
bikes.
that bike now, it would still be pretty good.
Yeah, it hasn't touched dirt yet. I'm like, it's
It's a real
still
shame.
it's still crisp. I'm like,
Yeah.
I kind of do want to, and I don't want to ride it at the
Yeah.
same time.
I bet you it still works pretty well.
Yeah, it'll corner. Imagine the cornering on those things.
Yeah.
26-inch
Oh, rip.
wheels,
I know.
low bottom bracket, short chainstay.
Fuck yeah.
That'll be awesome. So then, so 2008, yeah, went over race world champs as a junior. How'd you go that year in juniors? I remember because it was like you, Matt Walker,
Ari Barrett.
Yeah.
Who else
Who
was?
was anyone else
Richard
in
Leacock.
juniors? Oh yeah, Richo.
Richo. So there was, we had a solid crew, and I think, it went really well for me. Ari was 4th and I was 5th.
That's right. Yeah, you
Oh,
guys both
yeah.
had really good results.
Yeah,
I forgot
and,
that
like,
was,
we
that
were-
far up.
And we had, we were racing against Ratboy, Sam Dale, Remy
Was it
Therion.
Remy Therion? That was the top three,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah. So, like, I guess at the time, like, I was like, stoked to be 5th in the world, but I didn't really know what it kind of meant, if you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I kind of was still pretty fresh to being out in New Zealand and racing in Europe, so, like, I just didn't realise what that 5th place would lead me to. And then basically after that, it kind of, like, I didn't really have much options
Yeah.
leading into the off season. And then, Ancelotti come about, and I think from memory, Wyn sorted that, and 2009 I was on a team with him, and literally leaving New Zealand with my stepdad, who came over with me for I think about 3 weeks just to sort of set me up while Wyn was racing in I think he was racing in South Africa.
Wyn would have been doing something gypsy. He
Yeah,
would have
yeah.
been like camping out on someone's floor and
Yeah.
biking rides.
So, like, he come with me, and we were, like, in the middle of the mountains in Italy, like 4 or 5 hours from Florence. So it was, like, kind of daunting for me because, like, I'd lived at home, had food cooked
Still
for
pretty
me.
young.
Yeah, like, where we went, there was no Wi-Fi, so we had, like, a little stick thing that, would just plug into the side, and it would
You
give
forget
us...
about those days.
Yeah, bro, you do definitely forget about them. So, we just based ourselves out of there for basically the whole season, and when we went racing, we were there, and like when
That's a pretty cool deal, like the Ancelotti, so Tommaso that owns it. Like they're all hand built and everything, aren't they? And like,
it was so sick,
super
like,
niche little Italian brand.
Yeah, and that
He
like
just loves it.
him and
Absolutely loves it.
his old man literally just built those bikes out of the back of their shed. And like, it was pretty crazy because now I look back at it, and like now I know, like, how bikes work, and all the geometry and numbers and stuff like that, and I look back on it now and I'm like, man, wonder if I'd love to ride that bike now to see the difference from what it was like when we rode it to now, because
They're still super similar, right? Like they're still basically at the same platform.
they're still the same. They still make their own shocks. So like, and I mean, back then, like, I didn't have a great idea of how bikes work. We kind of just rode it, but it done great for me, and it was a sick little setup and like a good, stepping stone like of learning. We lived in a camper when we went to races and just raced a bunch of like Italian nationals, and I raced majority of the European World Cups and did like South Africa and Canada.
That's
So,
right,
yeah.
because the season
Yeah.
started in 2009 that year.
Yeah.
And
It's
South
in
Africa. Right? Yeah.
So no, it was it was a great stepping stone and learned a lot, and
Led to a junior world championship in Canberra.
yeah,
So
which
it's a pretty good season.
yeah, and again like the favourites were like Danny Hart and Sean O'Connor, who had factory teams, and
Danny had been touted for a long time. Like he'd been getting
Yeah.
up from like since he was like 15
Years.
sort of thing.
Yeah. So for me it was quite like, I was pretty intimidated that I'm racing against these guys on like a bike that's made out of someone's back garage, and I and won that day. It was pretty cool. It was like something that I had dreamed of, because I kind of like knew from the year before that, like, if I can be in the top 5, I definitely can be in the top 3, and ended up winning, and it was like a pretty special day because I also shared a world championship title with PD, who never won a world
legendary
championship until then. So it was a pretty special day.
That was that was cool. I mean, I still remember that. I think we just got to finish watching the juniors before we went up for our race run, so it was that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And
so that that obviously turned some heads again. Like you'd obviously had a pretty solid season. Then so you joined MS Racing, and it was on Evil, wasn't it, in 2010?
Yeah. So basically after that, I went home, and then I rode for Dog Boy, who had previously helped me out just in like the summer of New Zealand, like just gave me bikes and
on a turner that season on a turner.
Yeah. And then
with Scalzi, no doubt.
Yeah, and then when I rode in 2009, that year I rode on a Corsair.
Oh, that's right.
Really?
I forgot that short-lived era of Corsair.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, I was on one of those.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Holy shit! That's a niche bit of time in the New Zealand downhill scene.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So I rode one of those, and then Dog Boy obviously had a pretty good connection with Marcus, who owns MS, and got me on board with that, which was pretty cool. Like, it was just it was like, I basically paid for flights, food, and then I just stayed on the bus. So it was like, obviously for me it was a huge deal, and like being able to be on like a somewhat factory team with some solid sponsors and some big name riders. It was pretty awesome, and so I got to be on the team with Stevie, Philip Polk, and
Luke Strobel on
Luke
there at that
Strobel,
time?
yeah, bro. So we had a real good team, and like 2010 and 11 on Evil was like 2 really good years for me. I think I had a 6th place in 2010, a 6th place in Champery.
Yeah.
And that 2010 season was sort of up and down. I think I might have. I can't remember. I don't know where I finished in overall. Maybe a top 20.
Yeah.
And then 2011 had a real good season. I had, I think, 3 or 4 podiums. I had a 3rd in Fort William, 3rd in Mount St. Anne,
as well,
and a 4th in a fourth in Wyndham.
Yeah, that's solid. Had your
yeah.
had your deal changed in 2011, or were you still sort of on the same program from 2010? Or
Nah, I think I actually like. It was quite funny because I remember this so vividly. Like I know when I went from 2010 and started getting a small salary in 2011. I
I was
was
about to
in
ask.
I was in where was I? I was in homegrown in Wellington, and
Oh, no way.
yeah, I was on the person went into the ATM machine and checked my bank balance, and I was like, holy shit! Like
I got cash in
I
there,
got cash, and that was like, I was like, oh
and the salary was gone that night.
yeah, yeah, probably half of it. But yeah, so like that was when I was kind of like, shit, this is becoming like a somewhat full time job.
Yeah,
So yeah, like small salary in 2011, and then had my best season then, and finished sixth overall.
shit, that's pretty
Um,
impressive for second year out of juniors, like sixth overall. That's fully legitimate there.
yeah, and like I look back on it now, and I'm just like, I was just kind of like, I was just having fun riding my bike. I didn't really know like too much about how all the points worked, and
Yeah,
every race I was like, oh fuck, I'm single digit now. Like, I must be going well.
just
So like,
probably worked for you. Just like no pressure, just kind of
yeah,
like, oh yeah, this is fun.
yeah. So that was an awesome season, and like that bike we rode was so good. It was such a sick bike. They designed,
I remember them working super well.
yeah, they just broke a lot. Like we broke so
Yeah,
many.
Yeah.
that was
Yeah,
going
I
to be my
remember
next
people
question.
breaking
How
them.
many of them did you break?
Yeah, I think we go through like at least two or three a weekend.
Oh,
Holy
wow.
shit,
Um,
it's unreal.
yeah,
I don't
but
think
we
it would be
just
that bad.
we just keep riding them though. Like it wasn't like it would get to a point where we'd be like, okay, we have to change them out now, but we could ride. They'd just be like hairline cracks, and
Yeah.
sometimes a frame creased. I remember like coming off that Petey's plunge in Wyndham, and I just
Oh
like
yeah.
second run flat landed it, got to the bottom, and I was like, fuck, my bike's pretty bent. Top tube had like put a
Oh,
big crease in the top of it, so it had like folded the head tube back into
Oh
like
fuck.
towards the bottom
oh my
bracket.
god.
Because they were still alloy at that point, weren't they? They hadn't
Yeah,
got carbon in.
yeah, bro. And like I think we were, I vaguely remember. I think we were like limited to frame, so I like done a whole day's practice on that bike.
Head angle was probably like a degree slacker.
Yeah, not that I really would have known too
Yeah,
much.
wouldn't have
but
worried.
Yeah, so no, that was a real good season for me. And then yeah, we switched bike brands in 2011 and went to Mondraker. And yeah, that was an sorry, 2012 we
12,
switched.
you went
Yeah,
on to them? Yeah.
switched on to Mondraker. And
And it changed up a bit that season, eh? Because did you change to Mazzocchi, or was
Yeah,
it already had you already been?
we changed to
That was
Mazzocchi.
Fox.
Yeah.
We're on Fox and then went to Mazzocchi. And I struggled a lot of the first part of the season because when Mondraker, they kind of like come out with this with a zero stem,
Oh, that was a fucking terrible idea.
and like
Oh,
we did a bunch of testing in Queenstown, and we were riding on the World Cup track, which is pretty steep.
Yeah.
yeah.
And it worked really well. Like I was like, "Fuck, this is actually really good." Like I was stoked with how it was going, and then it was just like, as soon as we kind of got to flatter tracks or like tracks that weren't so steep, it was just like we kind of struggled a lot because we lost all the front end grip, and and also we struggled to like get a good setup on the Mazzocchi suspension. So like the combination of the fork and the zero stem was quite difficult, and as
Just a
my
tough front end to deal with.
yeah, and like I think my riding style didn't really suit that because I was like kind of an aggressive rider and more so off the back than anything.
Yeah.
And then so like I struggled a lot with that, and I just like was always washing out, losing the front. And then so like my season was kind of mixed halfway through until Val d'Isere, and then I was just like I can't ride this anymore. I just I struggled with it so much. So I was like, I'm just going to go back to a normal stem, put a normal stem on like 2 weeks prior to Val d'Isere, and went and won my first World Cup.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
That was so was that like was that going against kind of Mondraker's wishes or anything, putting a normal stem back on? Because I know they were pushing that zero thing pretty hard, but that wasn't like a drama or anything.
I can't quite remember, but I don't think it was a big drama.
Yeah.
I think it was just something that Caesar had come up with and tested, and
Fabian was a big fan of it too, so like he obviously held a whole heap of weight when it came to stuff like that.
And I mean, like I think it worked well for some people. I know Damien Spagnola liked it, but I guess it just didn't really work out for myself. So I kind of needed to change something, and we changed that, and
obviously the switch worked.
Yeah, it was a huge difference. Made the rest of my season a lot easier.
That
didn't
was a
you
big
guys?
Weekend, that one.
Didn't you shove a fox damper in the Marzocchi as well?
That was Damien, wasn't it? Or
Damien,
did you have that as well?
I think Damien, yeah. So we had a couple of guys from Mazzocchi who I don't think had worked so much on mountain bike suspension, so had limited knowledge on what they were doing, and we had like full support through the season. And then Val d'Isere, they brought in another guy called Pedro, who was like apparently he was just like the guru of Mazzocchi and basically turned everything around for us. And like suspension was really good after that. Like fork worked really well. The shock didn't work so good, so I was just running a standard Fox one. But he done a great job on the fork and made a huge difference. Won my first World Cup. That was pretty crazy.
That race didn't Cam Cole qualify first there?
Yeah. It was
I remember it being a big weekend for the Kiwis.
It was pretty sick. Cam qualified first. I think. I want to say Rat Boy was second, and I was third.
Yeah, because I think Ratty ended up second behind you in finals from memory.
Yeah, it was me, Rat Boy, G, Gwynny, and Manar.
Oh man, that's a pretty epic podium.
Yeah. So like standing on top and having those four guys around me was pretty unreal. I think Cam maybe crashed or made a big mistake in his race run.
Yeah. I think it was a big mistake.
Yeah. But no, it was a good weekend for the Kiwis. It was sick. Like, we also had a bunch of Kiwis there watching too. So, they really turned it on, and it got.
Do you remember what your bonus looked like from that weekend? Was that another open up the ATM and be pretty stoked with what you saw?
Yeah, I think the bonus was good. I think it was like maybe I want to say like maybe 5,000 or 6,000 euros.
That's sweet.
So like,
not bad.
Not bad, at the time, and and like first time getting some good prize money. I blew half of it that night. Woke up in the morning with a small amount of cash on me. Like, oh shit, where did that go?
Hey, was 2012? Was that when you joined Red Bull as well?
End of 2010.
Oh, it
going
was
into
earlier.
2011.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, so it was even a year before that.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
So I done 2011 that was my first full year on Red Bull.
Yeah.
And
I still remember your first Red Bull helmet with the purple trim on it.
Yeah, the purple piping.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just like a vinyl wrap job, like super quick. I've got that I cut that in half, and I gave half to my gran and half to Dog Boy. So
sick.
Yeah. it's quite cool.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
So
How did that go down? Like, how do you... Being a Red Bull athlete's a pretty big deal. Like, how did it happen?
yeah, so I reached out to them. I just thought, man, I'll just give it a crack. I'll just try.
The weirdest I can say is no.
Yeah, try my luck in 2009. I reached out to someone at Red Bull. I think it might even be Ivan, who was like the OG athlete manager then. And they still had Vanessa on the team, so they weren't like interested.
Oh, right.
And yeah, and
She's
then
still racing at that point. Or maybe they were still sort of supporting her.
I think they were
still
still supporting her in some way.
Yeah.
Or maybe they were just like starting to phase her out.
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh, look, we're not looking at this point in time." So I was like, "Sweet as," and then had that season in 2010. It was a pretty good season, and then like I remember like vividly getting a phone call from Ivan, and I was like in my mum's room, and he was like, "Look, we've got a helmet for you," and I was like, "Fuck, no way!" Like, holy shit! Like, because normally, like with Red Bull, like they kind of do like a can in hand for a year and just sort of trial things out and see how things go. So I was really lucky that I just was like put straight into a Red Bull helmet, and obviously it's every kid's dream that is a fanatic of motocross
absolutely.
and mountain biking. So like, or extreme sports. Yeah. So that's sort of how it come about, and that just really opened up a lot of doors for me. Like, got to do a welcome project. I did like a 3-part series, 3-episode series. Got to go down to Queenstown. Got to like fly around in helis and film out of helis. So it was pretty sick. And I was just like, blown away. Like, Ivan, the athlete manager at the time, was like, down there with me, fucking, up in the morning cooking boiled eggs for the day, have them ready, like, like wrapped in tin foil and salt and pepper in there. So I just undo the shell and like dip my boiled eggs. So like, it was, I was getting like the full treatment, and I thought like I was pretty special, and and like ever since then, like it's been huge. Like, I've benefited so much out of them, and like the projects that I've been able to do with them, and just everything that they offer is pretty awesome, eh? Like, they've got APC centers that you can go to and do all your rehab and train at. They've got nutritionists, and just
that stuff's got to be
everything.
such a huge benefit behind the scenes. Just the stuff that people don't see. It's like, it's not just a matter of them just like, have some money. It's like they're actually supporting their athletes to be better.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the difference between like Red Bull and Monster. Like, I feel like Monster would probably throw a lot more cash at you than Red Bull would, but don't.
But that's going to be it.
Yeah, they don't offer the services that Red Bull has, like, budgets for projects and travel and performance budgets. And I even know, like, I know Stevie had medical and dental cover by Red Bull in Canada. So like stuff like that, it's pretty awesome.
Wow.
And like, when I had my injury, kind of like everyone around Red Bull, like Red Bull Canada, really like stepped in and tried to help me finding like rehab places that I could go to, and like trying to figure out the fastest possible way of getting me into a rehab place, whether it was in Canada or the US. So it's like all that sort of stuff is pretty awesome, eh?
Yeah, you can see that it's like the actual athlete is the number one part for them. Like, obviously the results matter, but it's like they see the benefit of keeping their guys at 100 when their girls at 100%. So it's pretty epic.
Yeah. So no, that was a pretty special moment, eh? Like when I got that phone call, I was like, holy shit! Like,
obviously, probably it would be interesting, like without you reaching out to them first in that 2009, like whether that just opened Ivan's eyes to kind of keep track of you, or whether someone they've been looking for a downhill guy or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, I know. I always think of that. Like I thought, well, man, wonder if I didn't reach out, whether I'd be in position I am now with Red Bull.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. That's definitely like a very, very prestigious brand to be a part of. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. No,
it's cool. And very exclusive club of athletes.
Yeah, definitely.
So then, back in the racing side of things, so 2013, 14, and 15, you were with Trek on the Trek World Racing with. So Martin Whiteley was obviously the manager through that. So was that like a jump in terms of like professionalism or anything? Like, I mean, MS has obviously always had a pretty dialed setup, but it's like, was it a big change between the two?
Yeah, it was huge. I remember it was Champrey. Where was it? Champrey World Champs, I think, when I was sorry, I'm just going back to when he approached me for management.
So you'd actually started working with Martin before
I'd started
started riding for Trek.
I started working with Martin, I think like 2011. 2011 I think I started working with him.
Yeah.
2011, 12. And he just threw like a massive figure at me, and I was like, holy shit, like, am I actually worth that? And like, this was like before were the talks with Trek, and because I think I vaguely remember he's like asked me like, what do you think, like asked me what does he think I'm worth, what do I think I'm worth? And I was like, man, I have no idea. And he was like, well, this is what I think you're worth. And I was like, fuck, no way, like, 6 figures. And I was like, shit, like, fucking hell. I was like, holy shit, like, didn't really have an idea of what 6 figures were, but I just knew that, 6 zeros on the end of, on the end of some numbers is a pretty big salary. So like, going into Trek, I had a really good deal with them for 3 years, and that was a huge jump from like Mondraker. MS was awesome. Like, I love the setup and like the vision Marcus had, and like the loose program and how it was operated. But I think it was like definitely time for me to sort of realize that this is actually going to be a full-time job for me, and potentially my whole career. So I kind of like, when I got offered that big contract, I was like, man, this is where I actually have to do some work and do some specific training, because I was just riding my bike and I was just going to the gym when I felt like it, but mainly just relying on my talent, and you can only really rely on that for so much until
it usually works good when you're younger, but as you get older, you got to start putting some work in.
Definitely. So Trek was like the sort of the point where I thought, this is time I have to put into work. So like, got a trainer.
And I think was Justin Leov still involved with the team at that point?
Yeah,
I can't remember where his transition kind of moved off to Enduro.
I think maybe it was 2013, when he transitioned into Enduro. 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I want to say it was 13, because it was myself, Nico, George, and Greg Williamson.
That's right. It was it was quite a young team. I remember
quite a young team.
It was quite a reset for the team, really, and like 3 young riders, really. Yeah.
It was good, and jumping onto Martin's team, it was like a big difference. Like, everything, like organisation was next level, and himself is just a really organised person, and the way he runs a team and structure is next to none, and he does such a great job. But we really just had to turn up and race our bikes. That was all we really had to do, and we didn't have to worry about anything else, like, you know, being picked up at the airport, flights, all of that sort of stuff was sorted by him. So, like, you know, it was crazy. I remember, like, Paul, our road manager, he just, like, he knew you, like, you'd be like, oh, I'm thirsty. You go to turn around, he's standing there with a fucking bottle of water, like, you know, shit like that. It's like just crazy, just the way him and Paul operated. Like, they had, you know, they're best of mates, and they just have worked together for so long. They just know how to run a program, and, like, you know, like, every weekend we'd have a blue sheet, which would, like, when everyone flew in, our, you know, like, practice times, dinner times, all of that stuff. And, like, you know, it was so precise that, you know, if we were leaving for dinner at 7 o'clock, you'd have to be out there at, like, 5 to 7 to be ready. And, like, so funny, I remember Fort William one year, we were going to practice, and George wasn't there, and he
no, not George.
No.
it was so good. He never did that again.
No, I was going to say he would have learned his lesson from now on.
Yeah, but that's sort of how it was run, and, like,
Yeah.
you know, like, it was cool because, like, it sort of taught me a lot about, like, just, like, time management, and, you know, obviously spending 3 years there, it kind of, like, become engraved into my everyday life, and it still is now. Like, I'm just, I learned so much from that. I'm just like a sort of like a time management person now.
Yeah.
And
Pretty
like,
stepped up your overall level of professionalism and everything too. I imagine working with guys like Martin and Paul, like.
Yeah, definitely. And also a big brand like Trek too. So, like, you know, having a factory team where we could, like, you know, get looked after like a factory rider, and you know, be able to have access to changing the bike and things like that. It was pretty awesome. And that first year, I had Monk as my mechanic.
Oh,
So it was
wow.
like, I was like, fuck, this is crazy. Like, you know, I'm racing for one of the biggest bike companies in the world, and then also having one of the most iconic mechanics in the world. But to be honest, at that time, his health wasn't great, and he was just a character, man. He had, like, crazy stories. He'd, like, fall asleep on my bike. you probably spent a bit of time with Monk in America, Kieran, so you kind of...
a little bit. Not as much. Yeah, not as much as I would have liked to, but man, the times I did, he was shit, man. He had some good stories.
Else,
like, the last time was 2012. Me and Red Dog went over just kind of for, like, a fun trip, and it was at
right.
Sugar Bush. We went to a US National, and we hung out with him quite a bit there, and it was it was a good time.
Yeah, he would, like... I remember Fort William, that first race. Fuck, I went up for, like, my first or second run, come down, my stem bolts were just all loose, my handlebars were just, like, fucking moving about. I was like, holy shit, like, what have I got myself into here? And, like, you know, he'd fall asleep on top of the top tube in the bike stand, come out, and Monk's, like, fall asleep. I'm like, Monk, like, I'm not sleeping, homie. And it's just so funny, just, like, fucking, he'd just, like, you know, driving, he'd fall asleep driving, he'd be like, Monk, you're falling asleep. He's like, no, I'm not, my eyes open. I'm like,
He was
man.
He had the wildest yarns too, like, for his childhood and stuff, and, like,
he, like,
unbelievable.
He told me he was, like, he worked in the porn industry as, like, a light holder on porn sets. He had crazy stories, like, stories that, like, sounded way too good to be true. and they're probably half made up, but some of them are probably real. But like, he just
He
had
could tell a good story though.
good chat,
Oh, yeah.
Eh? It was just like every night we'd have like something different and something
Story time with
crazy.
mate.
Yeah, so like those 3 years on Trick were really good. Like I had my first year was really good. Like I started off solid.
Second at the first round.
Second at the
first
first
year,
round.
wasn't it?
And then I fucked my shoulder, so that kind of screwed me for the year. And like I always look back on that year and think how I would have done if I didn't wreck my shoulder, because like obviously first race, second overall, I went into the second race with the number 2 plate, and you know my goal was only to sort of try and improve from there and you know stay consistent. And then so I got like over those 3 years I was with Trek, I think I got maybe four podiums and 5th place at World Champs. So not too bad. Like a lot of like I was very consistent. Like a lot of top 10s.
I was going to say, that was probably like, I remember you being super consistent in those years on Trek. Like, it just seemed like a really solid time for you.
Yeah. Yep, definitely. No, I had a really good time there, and then Trek sort of just sort of at the end of the contract. I think they were like Martin had meetings in Wyndham, and I knew that they were like keen to carry on, and then sort of like it just sort of like flipped around, and next thing you know they're with the Athertons.
That's right. Yeah. That was a big change.
Yeah, that was a huge change. So we were all kind of left without a ride. And then, obviously Trek went to Athertons, and then that opened up GT to do something different. And then, went to GT.
Should we just not talk about those 2 years at GT? Should we just pretend those 2 years didn't exist? Or?
Yeah, we can just pretend those 2 years didn't exist.
Gloss over it.
Oh man, that was a rough time watching you race that bike those couple of years. I hate to say it.
It was rough 2 years.
Was it solely down to the bike, Brook? Because you came off that Trek, and that Trek had sort of been developed through the Wyn era.
Yeah.
And it was pretty good bike from all accounts.
That was a really good bike. And the GT was just purely the bike. I think at the time, like when we at the time it was sort of like quite outdated for that era. Like there was a lot of new stuff coming in, and we all struggled with it. Obviously, like Martin had spent majority of his career with GT, so he kind of just adapted to that bike and knew how to ride it. And
so it was Martin Mays.
Martin Mays, yeah. And like I had a lot of confidence in it. Like I knew that
because he'd been, they'd been strong on it. They'd had some really good years on those GTs. Yeah,
they had some really good results on those bikes, and I kind of thought, well, if G can do it, then I can do it. But it didn't really work that way, and I think it was just like, I just think the bike didn't suit me and my riding style. And
the Athertons have kind of always been pretty notorious for having a weird kind of bike setup, and they definitely really developed that GT. So it always makes me wonder whether it was just kind of it worked really well for them.
But, that's what I think as well. Yeah, because everyone on the team struggled. Like Sam Dale and Wyn also struggled a lot.
I just remember you having some huge crashes on it.
Oh,
it just seemed like it would just go on you out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It was as soon as I started going fast was when it was real unpredictable, and I didn't have an idea of what it was going to do. And it was a super hard bike to ride, like real physical. And I was pretty fit that first season, and I was like going into race runs, and I was fucking hanging at the bottom, like arms were sore. And
you're probably starting to question you're probably starting to go like, fuck, what's wrong with me?
Yeah, I definitely was.
You don't think it's a bike because you've seen the results on the bike previously. Like I had that same thing when I was riding for Intense, and we had to ride the 951 at the end of the season, and I just couldn't qualify for World Cups on it anymore. And I was like, what the hell's wrong with me? But the bike was just a piece of shit.
Yeah, it gets to that point where you're like, fuck, is it me? Like, what is it? And you get to the point where you question yourself. And so yeah, it was difficult because, like, 2 years of my career that weren't ruined, but, like,
Yeah.
results that
Probably
weren't
a lot of missed results there,
yeah, definitely.
potentially.
And then
Did you learn anything though from those 2 years about either yourself or the bike setup and stuff?
I did. Yeah, I did. I guess I did learn a lot about myself. I kind of learned how to adapt to riding that bike and trying not to. I guess try not to think, try not to put negative thoughts into my head, and
Yeah.
and just try and work with what I had. Like, my best result in those 2 years was 8th place at Mount St. Anne, and I honestly thought that was a winning run. Like, it was fucking out of control, and I didn't even know how I got to the bottom. But yeah, it was like 8th place. I was like, fuck, this is solid. Like, and I was real stoked with that because I was like, I didn't really think I could possibly do anything like that on the bike.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first year was crazy. Like, it was like such a change from the Athertons to the program that they had made, and it was like, GT good times. Like, we kind of like brought back the good times of GT, and we had, like, I think €1,000 every race for, like, beers and barbecues. That's
the best marketing budget I've ever had. It's awesome.
So good.
And
that's why Morrison always has a ton of Duvel in the back of the van.
Yeah, exactly, bro. Like, so he was like, in my element, Duvels every weekend. And, like, we just have big barbecues, massive parties, and it kind of got to a point where it was just like fucking just way too much. And that was like the first year, so it was kind of like a big first year, and like first race in Lords, like, where it was like, holy shit, like, fucking, this is crazy.
This is a change from riding for Martin at Trek.
Yes, polar opposites.
And so then it kind of tamed down in the second year because, like, fuck, the pits were, shit was just getting destroyed, and people were just like coming and just fucking eating all the food. It was kind of like just for like riders, and
just became the party tent.
Yeah, it just became the party tent. Like, we kind of like got sick of it pretty quickly. Especially like we'd wake up in the morning some weekends, and it was like Morrison was like just feet hanging out the back of the van, like pits in a total mess when there's like XC dudes riding at 8 in the morning and there's broken glass everywhere.
Oh,
do you reckon Cam Cole's tightened that program up now that he's team manager there?
Definitely. I for sure think he has. He's definitely taken over a lot more and tightened it up. But I know they still smash a lot of Duvels there.
Yeah, there's got to be one piece go on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, those 2 years are rough, and then and then kind of like we didn't really come to any agreement with GT after when my contract ended, and like we didn't really know when there was going to be a new bike, so I didn't really want to take that risk again of going into another season of the unknown, really, and not knowing when I was going to have a bike. So that's when MS come up again. And Marcus has always had my back. He's been a great person to me, and like always looked after me. So it was sort of like fitting to go back there and be back with Mondraker. And that was like just a whole new, like new mechanic, new team environment, new riders, sort of different structure.
See, that's 5 years later, isn't it? You had 5 seasons away.
Yeah.
And then back.
And then I went to Maribor for an IXS in 2018, but right before Croatia, so it was a weekend before Croatia. It was like a good lead up to that. And Amaury, I think, won. Laurie was second and I was third. So it was like, it was like kind of good prep for Croatia, and I felt good.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, went into Croatia. I really liked that track. It was such a sick track, and like the place and venue itself was awesome. It was such a
It
cool,
looked crazy.
yeah. Just being able to like finish on the beach and feel like, I don't know, it just sort of felt like a holiday, really, like a biking holiday. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, it felt like really, it felt great all weekend. Fastest in time training, fastest in qualifying, and then I had that big crash in
That's right.
big crash in my
Massive
wasn't it?
crash.
final, yeah, and snapped my collarbone. So that was kind of, I was kind of gutted, and I wasn't, because I kind of like knew where I was kind of sitting, and like knew that my speed was there, and just everything was there really.
When you jumped back on like the Mondraker, were you kind of like, yeah, this is this is what I was missing?
Yeah,
Did it
I
just
guess
instantly
like,
sort of feel
yeah.
like the bike is
You know
where
when, when you jump on a bike and you like that first or second run, straight away it's a good bike.
like I feel like I could just go race this right now.
Exactly. So that's how I felt when I got it, and I was just like, fuck, I feel like I'm back at home, really. But 5 years later, obviously, from an alloy bike to a carbon bike, and that was another great season. Like I had,
I remember you being pretty strong, like a couple of podiums or maybe three podiums or something.
Had three. I think I had 3 podiums, 2 or 3 podiums, but I was also very consistent that year.
Yeah.
And it was sick because like it come down to the last race, and Laurie was in 5th and I was in 6th, and at the last race it's like you don't get points for qualifying, so all the points go into
all the points go into the final run.
finals. And it was sick because like me and Laurie were just bouncing off each other the whole season. Like if he wasn't in front of me, I was in front of him, and we like shared the podium together, which was pretty sick in Andorra. And then come down to La Bresse, and I got 3rd there. And I can't remember where he finished, but he just finished in front of me in the overall. Like, it was so close.
Oh, I still just got you.
Yeah. And I mean, like, 6th place is that, it's like, fuck, just off the podium. But
that's even with not even finishing finals at the first round as well.
Yeah. So that was a really good season. And then also going into 2019.
You started 19 was super strong. I remember, like,
Yeah.
you won national champs, Crankworks, Innsbruck, and Rotorua,
Yep.
wasn't it?
Yep. And then had just I didn't get. What did I get? Did I get a podium that year? I don't think I got a podium that year, but I was just real consistent. I was always, I think my best placing was maybe 6th, but I was always like 7, 8, 9.
Single digits.
Yeah, and then had good races at Crankworks, and and then had a massive crash at Mount St. Anne.
Yeah, obviously that Mount St. Anne crash has been pretty well documented and talked about. So I've kind of, I mean, obviously, we're not just trying to skip over it, but you've probably talked about that more than enough times, and I'm sure people are pretty well versed with it. But I was kind of like, I was pretty interested to talk more about kind of the return from that. Like, you got back to the World Cups in 2020, like the next season, which just seemed incredible. Like, obviously,
Wild.
The determination was just 110%. Like, I remember seeing you in Christchurch, and man, that must have been the end of 2019. When would you have been in Christchurch at Burwood?
Yeah, it was 2019, bro. I was there in September, October.
Yeah, I remember seeing you down there and thinking, like, man, it's going to be incredible. Like, if he gets back on a bike, full stop.
Yeah,
and like, man, to get back in racing in 2020 is unreal.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that got me there was the was the early goal setting. Like I was so ambitious on racing World Cups that following year. Like obviously didn't know what position I was in and whether I was gonna ride a bike again. But it was very early on that I was telling myself and telling Lucy that I was gonna race the season in 2020, and I was like, fuck, I'm gonna be back for the first World Cup, and that was like. It was Croatia, so I was like, fuck, I kind of wanted, in my head to go back there and finish the unfinished business that I'd left off there. Whether that was fucking doable or not, I don't think it was, but in my head it was. But yeah, just like, it was like a fast process, but also a slow process. And I think I just think, being able to like step back and not rush everything was like I think was the biggest part of gaining achievements.
It seems crazy to hear, like step back and not rush it, but yeah, you still like got back to go racing that next season. It's unreal.
Yeah, and I think as soon as I knew I was capable of riding a bike, because I rode a bike when I was in Burwood.
Yeah, I remember that actually.
I could ride it better than I could walk. And yeah, that kind of was just that sort of that next step in my recovery of fuck, I can actually ride a bike, so I potentially probably can actually race again. So my hopes were even higher then when my goal was to go racing that following year, and so I knew one thing that was holding me back was my rods in the back, which was like a big part of my back was fused, so it kind of limited me a lot. And when I did start riding bikes, I really noticed the effect it had on me, and I don't think I would be where I am today if I didn't have majority of them taken out of my back, because it just kind of I couldn't really I could ride a bike, but
not having that mobility would have been a huge battle, I bet.
Yeah, it was a massive battle, and although I was fucking grateful to be able to actually just go out and ride my bike, it was like, well, fuck, if I'm going to race my bike, I need to get these taken out. So that was an option, and I got those taken out. They didn't want to take them out as early as I did get them taken out, because I got them taken out 6 months, and they wanted to leave them in for 12. And I was like, fuck, if I'm going to try and continue with my job, I need them to get taken out. So I had MRIs and X-rays again, just to see all the healing process and stuff. And the doctor was he was pretty happy with the progress, and he was like, yeah, in 6 months we can take them out, we'll have a recess. And I was lucky enough to have a really good physio who also rode mountain bikes, but as a physio knew the position I was in and knew what my end goal was, so she was really helpful and really pushed them to be able to take those rods out. So I had that out, and that was a life-changing operation, just being able to have half of them taken out, it just changed everything of my life. Just no pain. Not that I had pain, but it was just things of just sitting down for a long time and then trying to stand up and just doing normal things. Was
everyday things.
Yeah, it was an effort. So yeah, when I had those taken out, it was pretty much back to normal, somewhat normal. And yeah.
What was the first race you did back in 2020? What was your first race back on the bike?
First race back was Crankworks.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was also lucky enough that we had COVID, which put us in a lockdown, and
that was the Innsbruck one, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I had my surgery. 8 weeks prior to Croatia, so I had it in March, and my plan was to fucking do everything I could to come back and race Croatia, and then we went into lockdown. So I was like, "Fuck, phew," that kind of took the pressure off of everything.
Gave you a little
Yeah.
bit of a looser timeline.
Breathing room.
Yeah, gave me a little bit of a looser timeline to prep myself a little bit more, and then went overseas and spent 6 weeks just traveling around Europe riding my bike, which was awesome, and just building my confidence and getting back to normality and strengthening everything, because fucking injury like that, man, it just affects everything, like your strength, all like your muscle memory goes.
Yeah.
Like the hardest thing for me was like when I'd fatigue, my legs would start shaking. I couldn't feel my feet, so which meant like trying to clip in, I couldn't feel the bottom of my shoes of whether I was clipped in or not.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Just those
and
little
like,
things that you take for granted.
Yeah, and the twisting laterally, trying to unclip and clip in and stuff like that. So that took a long time to come back. It was probably like 2 years for me to get comfortable with that and stop the leg shaking and stuff like that. But yeah, Crankworks. I raced Crankworks Innsbruck, and it kind of felt like I never left, because I only missed one race, which was snowshoe after World Champs. And I finished 11th there, and I was like fucking blown away. Like,
Yeah, that's a solid result to come back from.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't expect anything like that. And then raced Maribor, 2 races at. I think I did 2 races at Maribor and World Champs, and I was just like, I was ruined. I was like, because I just literally spent that whole year working my ass off to get back to racing my bike, so I was like pretty burnt out.
Yeah.
And I like, obviously with an injury like this, it fucks with all your body temperature regulation, all that stuff. So I was like really struggling in the cold. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to call it quits and fucking head home. I'm like pretty happy with how everything.
Because it ran super late that season, didn't it? So it was like actually pretty wintry in Europe.
Yeah, well, fucking World Champs, bro. It was snowing.
That's right, it was too. I forgot about that. Yeah, snowing at the top of
conditions.
I remember
track.
sitting in the start gate, and it's just like fucking pelting down with snow, and I'm like, fucking hell.
What am I doing here?
Yeah, and so I called it quits because I was happy with how everything went, and I was just burnt out. I kind of needed to go home and just sort of reflect on that year and what I'd done, and kind of take a break and sort of regroup and move on with my life of what happened.
Did you struggle at all mentally, like getting back in the start gate for that first race? Was it never any sort of like hesitation or anything?
Nah, there wasn't. Like that was, it was crazy because I thought there would have been, but there wasn't. And I like when people ask me that, I always tell them that like the way I look at it is like my injury it's so far away from everything else that is in front of you that can be injured easily. Yeah. So like your wrists, your arms, your knees, and your back's the furthest thing away. So I wasn't really worried about my back. That wasn't that. I kind of, when I hopped on a bike, it was just like I still had the confidence, but it was just all the fine, the fine motor neuron skills that sort of like was a little confidence lacquer.
You knew what you wanted to do in your head, but you just had to get everything linking back together.
Yeah. So I like those 6 weeks I spent in Europe, I was just like every day I was just building speed, and I was like, fuck, there must be a time when it's like I was in my head, like probably the last step of my recovery was to have a big crash, to know know
get that monkey off your back.
Yeah, to get that monkey off of my back and know that fuck, if I have a big crash that I'm going to be okay. And so I was just waiting for that, and I was actually in Schladming, and I was like, fuck, I felt I felt great, and I was like just fucking smashing out heaps of runs, and come around this corner into like this new section they had, and it was like sort of like a sweeping left-hander with like some roots on it. And I ran wide on it, and there was a fucking like a ski pole in the middle of the track that I didn't see. And the ski pole, I ran over it, and it flicked up and went in between my cranks.
Oh,
Oh
Went
man.
in between my cranks and fucking sent me over the handlebars. And like in my head, I was like, "Fuck, this is just this is like my crash in Mount St. Anne."
oh no.
And like I fucking
Yeah.
went over, landed straight on my back, and I was like, "Fuck!" Stood up, shook my legs, and I was just like, "Fuck yeah!" Like I was so pumped because like that was like sort of the last thing that I was waiting for to happen, and kind of like gave me the confidence that fuck, if I can have a crash that big, then I'm gonna be okay.
It's not
But it
something
was
you
just
can
like,
force. It's not like
yeah,
you're exactly going to go just like
Nah,
grab a
can't
handful
go
of
out
front
the crash.
brake just to test it out.
yeah, exactly.
Do this thing
and
for
it
a whirl.
just fucking come out of nowhere, like it just like spat me over the handlebars, and before I knew it, I was on the ground, and I was like, oh fuck, shook my legs, I could feel them, and I was good to go.
Could be one of
So-
the best crashes you've ever had.
Yeah. So mentally, I definitely didn't struggle at all.
Yeah, I mean, probably like when you're saying, you set those goals from day one as well, that like you were coming back, then you probably, it's not like you were coming back to do something you didn't really want to do. Like you had that in your mind from the get-go.
Yeah, and that was just like engraved in my mind. I was just like, I had to get there, and I was going to get there, whether it fucking took a year or 2 years.
Did you have to change anything setup-wise, Brooke?
Yeah.
Like with your bike, or like do you have to set it up softer, or you mentioned the clips thing, but is there anything else?
Nah, I didn't really have to change too much, bro. Probably my pedals were the biggest thing. I just obviously had to wind some tension off just so I had a bit more float in my shoe, so I could easily unclip. But yeah, nah, probably start was like maybe the rear. We ran the rear a little bit soft just to be a little bit easier on my legs.
Yeah.
But no, we didn't really change a whole heap.
Have you changed anything like in terms of your approach, like with your training, or like are you doing anything more specific, like to compensate, something that's weaker in your back or anything like that? Have you really had to make any adaptations, or is it just kind of back to like business as usual these days?
Yeah, it definitely is back to business as usual. So like the biggest thing that I lack, which I feel like I probably should do, is working on my coordination and balance, because with this injury, it obviously fucks all that, and I still don't have the greatest balance. So that's one thing that I feel like I should have worked on a lot more than I did before, but I was more so focused on like strengthening everything else, and that I did do a lot of balance stuff, but that kind of sort of phased out quickly when I was able to start lifting heavier weight and pushing heavier weight. It kind of just like that sort of phased out and started putting on muscle. And like that's, to be honest, like balancing is probably the least of my worries. Like I'm not walking around on one leg all the time. But everything that I do now is pretty much back to normal. Some specific stuff I do, because my right side was more damaged than my left, so I kind of try and work a lot more on my right side, whether I'm doing single leg stuff. So if I'm doing some single leg stuff, I'll just do single leg on the right side. Just to sort of like keep trying to build that muscle, because it's definitely a lot better now, but for probably like 21, 22, I lacked a lot. Like my differences in my legs there was probably like maybe 10 or 11% power difference between both legs.
Oh, yeah.
That's, pretty considerable.
Yeah, so like, yeah, it was quite a significant difference there. I still like, it's still like, it's a lot better now. It sits between probably like 5 and 6. So I don't think it's ever going to be the same. But I definitely do notice my right side being a lot stronger than it was before. And I also I feel like my right side, some things that I do, my right side's stronger than my left because I've compensated a lot on my left side. So like more things are tightened up and I'm limited to doing stuff on that. So yeah, but there's just a fucking shitload of things small things that no one will ever know that goes on in an injury like that unless you have it.
No, could imagine it's or like, I mean, you're just saying it's those things like how you couldn't feel getting clipped in and things like that. You just never even think of, simple things, but it's like there's your your interface with your pedals, like, it's one of your two contact points on the bike. So that's pretty important.
Yeah. Nah, it's it's crazy because like it's taken a solid 3 years to get back to what I think now is what I think now I'm pretty normal.
Yeah.
With everything, and they did tell me it would take probably 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Before you feel normal again. So yeah, no, it was, and like, as much as I fucking wish I never went through any of what I went through, I kind of am happy I did go through something like that because it definitely taught me a lot about myself. It was just it was actually a cool, as much as it doesn't sound like it's a cool process to go through, it actually was a cool process because I felt like I was reliving being one again, learning that, balancing and having to learn to walk again and stuff like that. So
one of those things that you don't want to live through, but now that you've lived through it and came out good on the other side, it's probably quite a unique
beneficial
experience.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I always look back on it and I'm like, fuck it. I always forget that I've been through something like that. It's kind of just one of those things that happen and I've kind of forgot about now.
Yeah. Just moved on, carried on.
Yeah.
So, back this season, obviously, 2023 with the MS team again. So it's still pretty much the same, isn't it? You, Tahoto, and Dave Trummer, and Eleonora.
Yeah, and we've just brought on Jacob Dixon as well.
Nice. Oh, he'll be a good addition.
Yeah, so solid team, and we've got a new bike coming, so I'm looking forward to that.
Will you be on that for the World Cup season?
Yeah. As you know, it's not an easy process to go through and develop a new bike. It's
no way.
Looking at being an athlete and a rider, you're like, fuck, I just want this bike. Why does it take so long?
Yeah.
Can't you? You've got the tools, you've got the people to make it happen, but it's not as easy as it thinks. And being a rider, you don't understand it that way, and you just want the bike.
Yeah.
And when you know that you've got a new bike coming, it's kind of hard to sit here and, ride the current bike we're riding now when you know you've got something new coming, because you're like, oh, fuck, what's that going to be like? It's going to...
Have you haven't ridden any pre-production or anything or prototype of it yet, or?
Nah, we haven't ridden anything. It's sort of, everything's in the works now, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have something at the end of this month, start of March. Yeah. So we're kind of lucky that we've got a late start into the season, so we've got some time to prepare on it. Yeah.
Will you ride that when you go to Europe, or are you going to be on it back home?
Hopefully I'll have it here. Have it here, so that should be good. I'm just keen to get it here and do some riding and hopefully race Crankworks on it.
Oh, nice.
Have you guys, the team, had a lot of feedback in regards to the new bike? Have you
Yeah, we've definitely had a lot of feedback, especially from this current bike we're riding. Yeah, like all the stuff that we don't, well, that does, well, like between the riders that doesn't suit us. We've kind of like taken and put it into the new bike, and my mechanic now is an engineer, so he's had a lot of input into this new bike, and he's sort of been the backbone of helping to design all the suspension and kinematics around it. So
nice.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, nice.
we've definitely had a lot of input, and yeah, hopefully when we get it, we're able to. Fingers crossed, it's just going to be a bike that we can hop on and not have to change much on.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
like I'm not going to go and try and shit on the bike brand you're riding for or anything, but it definitely looked like the three of you were not able to ride to your potential last season. I reckon. Like it's, yeah.
nah,
No, you don't
definitely
need to
not.
put any comment in or anything,
Nah.
but it's just from the outside looking in, like the three of you guys on there, I was like, man, I just feel like they're not able to, do what they probably should be doing.
Yeah, just
So,
we didn't gel with the bike. It's
yeah, and you could see, idlers going on, idlers coming off, and things like that. So it's sort of like, it looked like it was a little bit of a struggle.
we
so
did.
hopefully this new one will work well for you.
Yeah. No, I think with the people that Mondraker have, they got a great vision, and they've they know what they're doing. So
Yeah.
fingers crossed that we have this bike soon, and we can turn everything around that we had last year into something good this year.
Nice. Well, I reckon we're probably getting pretty close to a good time to wrap it up, but I reckon we should finish on you giving us a national series story. One that can be told that won't get anyone in trouble, but the Blinky one was pretty good. So have you got anything good you can share with us off the top of your head?
Yeah, I reckon I got. You were at the top 10 motor camp in Queenstown that year. The fire brigade turned up in the morning, eh?
Yeah.
Fuck, that was.
That's maybe one that shouldn't be told in full,
Yeah,
I think, from memory. But
one good one is Gorge Road, how they used to have all those cars there.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there was like a dumping ground of just
Yeah, it was
like a
people just go
dumping
dump
ground,
cars there, and
We were down like prior to, I think, when the first round was, and we had New Year's in Wanaka, like Wyn, Eddie, myself, Donnie, and Donnie went over. They'd been at the jumps, and they'd seen this old Ford Bedford. Were you there with us, KB?
I don't think so.
Nah.
I would have been around there. I'm
Yeah.
sure, like down there at the time, but
They found this. Donnie found this orange Ford Bedford, like real sick thing, like pop top roof, and he pinched it from there, brought it over to Wanaka, and we just fucking rallied it. Like I was 17. Didn't have my drivers. Well, I had my learners, I think, and we were just fucking ripping around Wanaka. And I remember we went out the back of Al's house, somewhere around there. We were just hitting these hills, and I remember fucking Donnie, he was just in his element, and he's coming over these hills, and this big Bedford, fully getting the front wheels, doing wheelies down these hills, and and then he fucking crashed into this power pole, and then I got in it with Skinner, I think, and someone else. Skinner was on the milk cartons in the middle. We hit this big jump, bro. Skinner went up, went through the top of the roof, come down and fucking smashed himself. And then on New Year's night, I was driving it round, and fucking Eddie was in the back asleep, and I was just at giveaway. I was fucking just this mongrel 17-year-old. I was at this giveaway sign, just foot flat, clutch in, and then just dump the clutch. fucking Eddie comes flying out the back, fucking falls out the back on the road, bro, and I just take off. I didn't even know he'd fallen out the back, and I was like cruising down this gravel road, like someone was in the back just ripping all the bedding and like shells out, throwing them out. I'm doing big snakies on this road. It was just crazy. And then the next day, Donnie took it back to the Gorge Road, and Gorge Road, like at the end of the jumps, had this massive big hole. And then he just went there, drove it himself into the hole, like planted this.
They didn't do the brick on the accelerator trick. He just drove it in himself.
He just drove it in himself, and then there's this Ford Bedford parked up in this big hole at Gorge Road. That was pretty good. But yeah, we've got every race there was some sort of memory. I like
tails forever.
Yeah, Nelson was always good, good after party.
Yeah. There was always some debauchery that went on.
Yeah, I remember. Was it Alex Bond that came out?
Yeah. He was pretty loose.
Yeah.
And got ripped up by the dog. He was on the 50 or something.
Yeah. That was in like 2008, I think.
Red Dog, was that the year that we were talking about? Was that one of the arrests from that?
It might have been. I remember he got ripped up by the dog.
There was like 6 arrests or something that season. Maybe that was one of them.
And then that was good. And then the season ender in Levin, bro. The Levin party was that was off the chain when we had that.
The rotor van.
The rotor van burnouts, just madness, and we had that massive after party.
That was the Pusher 2 year. Was it like a brewery?
Yeah.
I think.
Man.
I think that is Pusher 2 on YouTube.
Nah. Only the first one is. Byron hasn't let Pusher 2 out into the wild yet, but
Byron needs to let Pusher 2 out. I feel like people need to see Pusher 2 to realise what mountain biking was.
Yeah, that must have been like 2006 or 7, I think, that season. That was just maybe 06 because
it was 07. It was 07 Pusher 2. Yeah,
that's right, because it was when Cam was going over the race for Maxis that first season. It was
that was sick.
That was a year, that one, that's for sure.
Yeah, those were the times though. That's like those were just like, like I just like I remember first year traveling with Wyn. My mum took me to we met him in where was it? In just somewhere out of Wanganui. He just bought this van, and we got halfway, not even halfway, probably 15 minutes down the road on the way to Wellington. Gearbox dropped out, and we were stuck in 4th gear. So we literally had to drive all the way from Wellington to we were trying to drive all the way to Queenstown, but we got to Christchurch. But it was madness.
I can't believe you got that far in 4th gear.
Yeah, every stop sign, every light, Betty and I would have to get out and push the van. And we got off the ferry and we drove to Blenheim, and it was 10 at night. Drove down the main street of Blenheim, 4th gear, and they had all the speed bumps in there.
I remember this now.
Wyn's no, we can't. I'm slow down, bro. He's no, we can't slow down. Fucking over the speed bump. Boom, boom. Last speed bump. Not knowing at the time, but bikes had all come off. We get to Ox's house. I go around the back to look if the bikes are there, and I'm fuck, boys, the bikes are not there. And they're nah, you're shitting us. And I'm no shit. I had brand new Iron Horse.
That's right.
DK jump bike.
Yeah.
And then we quickly rushed back into town, and all the bikes were gone. My jump bike was just sitting there, and it was. And then, and then we went from Blenheim, drove all the way to Christchurch, and then we picked up, left it there, and we bought this Holden Barina, little 2-door Holden Barina, and cruised around the South Island.
I remember that thing too. It had the real dodgy bike rack on the back window, and
it had for a bit it did. And then the window, Betty smashed the window out, and him and Wyn had a fight. He went home, and Wyn and I were in it, and we just put our bikes in the back of the Barina with the window smashed out and cruise about, petrol fumes coming in. And
what did you do for a bike, a downhill bike after? Did you ever get that bike back?
Nah. So they caught the dude, and he paid me, I think it was $5 a week. for
Oh,
like
God.
Really?
Still paying.
for like 7 years, something like that.
No way.
God.
So luckily I got insurance on that, but also lucky I had a spare bike sitting at home. I had a tuner sitting at home, so
Oh, yeah.
a friend brought that down for me. So I was kind of lucky that I was able to have that. But yeah, no, those you'll never ever compete against those national series again. Eh?
Nah.
Nah.
They
No,
were,
not even close.
That was a real era that time.
Yeah,
What a time.
if I was 16 again, I'd love to relive those moments.
Oh, man. It's those memories that you could never make. They were just incredible. You could never
It's
make
probably
them again.
part of the reason why you like you feel like you're part of something almost, eh? And that's why you stuck with it. Like,
I remember like
you were just hanging out for the next season. It's like, let's go. Like, where are we going this year?
Like Des Curry, he was just he was crazy. Like I remember in Blenheim, bro, went up the top of the Blenheim track and like got all these like 20-litre oil cans, and he'd drive around. He'd be out the back door of the van around the roundabouts, fucking tipping oil all around the roundabouts, and we parked down the road, and he'd sit there and watch the fucking cars come through, and just like fucking spinning out.
Oh my God, what a
crazy,
beast.
bro. Oh yeah, like you'd never get away with that now, eh?
Nah. Well, good thing it's long enough ago that we hopefully no one gets in trouble for anything these days. But
yeah, exactly.
Oh well, man, that was an awesome time with you there, Brook. Thank you very much for joining us,
me, boys. Good to chat.
Great to have you.
Glad we
relive some memories.
Yeah. Oh mate, there's nothing like them. We'll relive some more at national champs. I reckon we'll just not on record. We'll have the off record chats at national champs.
Sounds good, boys. All right.
Awesome. Alrighty. Thanks again, mate.
Cheers. See you later.
What's up? I come from the land of down under. I can't hear you. What was that? I can't hear you. I let it be like John Lennon, the anti-serum that you don't get for poisonous venom. Read the label carefully, I'm only here for the show. I love hip-hop too much to let you feed my ego. In the key of F-U-C-K, Y-O-U. I mean, why do I owe you if you're not helping me through? I mean, why do I owe you if you're obstructing my view? Success is not my castle, just a house that's brand new. You see, I irrigate the culture, give it shape like a sculpture. Still complicated, rock like I'm supposed to be. L-I-T-Z like my DJ. Rock to the rhythm like you rock to what he plays.